Welcome, friends, to another session of NPT Banking where we talk about banking issues so that it is a learning process for all of us and a discussion also. This time, the discussion is a little bit different, not just for bankers and not just for bank auditors, but especially for those who would like to investigate. Before we go to the event, I would like to mention here that this discussion is more of a sharing of the process of thinking of an investigator of how I go through the process at the time of a fraud investigation. Students of mine of management have already experienced my presentation of this format where acquisitions and mergers, real life cases are being taken as they are formed. It is very easy to talk about a historical case where the event and the outcome is already known to us, and therefore the conclusions and the process to arrive at the conclusion is somewhat manipulated or biased towards the results which have occurred. Therefore, in this session, we are taking up an event which has just occurred on December 25th, 2021. Let us see what that event was.
It was an unmatched Christmas gift as a bank in London mistakenly deposited over $176 million into the bank accounts of thousands of customers. Customers of Santander Bank woke up on Christmas morning to be surprised with double wages due to a deposit mishap, which the bank said was the result of a mysterious scheduling issue. The bank is now working to undo that generosity. Unfortunately for Santander, many of the deposits were made to accounts at other financial institutes, including HSBC, Barclays, and others. The London Bank will now use a process called bank error recovery to collect the funds, though it's unclear how many individuals have already spent the money, which could make this process a nightmare for the bank.
I would like to mention over here that I am not the appointed investigator for the Santander Bank. Now, before we go into the analysis of the reasons of the problem, let us look at the fundamentals of the event itself. Who is Santander Bank? It was formerly a sovereign bank of Spain. The full video clip about this is here in detail. So, the event of double payment of salaries or vendors, which occurred on December 25th, which especially you must remember is a holiday in most of the countries where this bank is located. If you are from a location where Santander Bank does not have a branch, here is a brief about the bank. The locations are these, which are there on your screen right now. If you are located at a place other than these, then possibly we need an introduction to the bank itself. Then we have a software which is affecting the double payment. The software, wait a minute. The software is a very famous software called Temenos T24, and it's not a new one, nor is it a small company. And the implementer is naturally somebody who is appointed by the software vendor and most probably a subsidiary of the main company. There are a lot of thousands of users of this software, and none of them have experienced this over 125 countries. Now we must remember that the software, if you see on the left hand side, it is open hardware and open database. So it's quite possible that the payment routine or application could be a third party and not of this software itself. And another point we must see, which occurs to mind due to the double payment, that the traditional batch processing is eliminated. Here if you see, batch run is eliminated because now we are running into 24-hour banking. Earlier the batches used to run at the end of the day, and end of the day for a banker is a very holy event where a lot of totals and batch totals and lot of control totals take place, and the events of the transactions are closed, meaning that after the end of the day you are not allowed to make transactions of a previous day, which is unlike the corporate sector where the books are open from the first day of the financial year to the last day. Now, however, due to the 24-hour service as mentioned over here worldwide, we don't have the concept of batch processing, and therefore the complications of batch processing, which could be one of the complications and the reason for this double payment, is eliminated in this software. All these points have to be taken into account while looking at the hypothesis. In any fraud investigation or any study, hypothesis is something which we have to make as our first step to seek the direction of our query. We just can't look at the event and run here about and there trying our luck to that the clues will fall in our lap. So it is an educated guess based on the probability. We look at the various hypotheses that we can form, and in the last stage we will look at the probability of that due to the event and the features of the bank and the software which is already there. The publicity department of the bank has replied, and the newspapers normally report events which are beyond comprehension of a serious minded, knowledgeable person in banking industry. This is a worldwide event. Now, yet there are some clues which we can take out from there. Is December 25th was the date of the error. Mind you, it was a holiday. Duplicate payments were for all purposes, not just for salary but also for the vendor payments, which means the direct payments which are done by the customers were made in a duplicate manner. The bank has reported, and I quote, scheduling error. Now, this scheduling error was easily understandable if there was a batch control where the batch or the process was run twice. The process initiation could be manual, and if it is run twice, then this is possible. But remember that there is no batch control in T24, so we cannot arrive at this kind of a easy conclusion for this purpose. Now look at the hypothesis that we can have. Double payment has occurred, so it either system related or manual. So first let's look at the system related issues. There is no batch control. That is one hypothesis, that since there is no batch control, the batch process of making payment ran twice, or a new routine, or there was a maintenance in the software due to which there is a glitch. When there is a maintenance of the software gets confused and it was still running at the time of the maintenance, then it's quite possible that this might have occurred. Or a calendar setting. Holidays are set in the banking system as a holiday, and then the payments or whatever is due is done on the next day or previous day as per the policy of the bank. And it's quite possible here that the calendar setting was done somewhere in the middle, and therefore the earlier policy of payment of December 25th to be done on 24th was already executed, and again it was executed for 25th. Now, this confusion is not likely in terms of our logic, but in terms of the software, this confusion is possible. Or the hypothesis that this is user related, that is the person who is using the software or the bank or the IT people in the software are the reason for this error. If it is a process that is run once, or I activated by the user, it is activated twice. I do it, and my colleague also feels that I have not done it, and it is done again. This was quite issue in the initial stages, but this software vendor and the software stage of maturity, this seems a little less likely. However, we will be talking about the probabilities later on. Or this could be an intentional, user related but intentional. And the intentional is due to fraud. Now, if there are so many beneficiaries to the double payment, or there are thousands and thousands, and not one or two, if there were one or two, then you will be able to isolate that it is the person's friend company or person's company, or the person is hand in glove with somebody to do this. If there are thousands, then it is lost in the melee, lost in the crowd, and the possibility of finding out immediately to recover the money is very low, and by the time the person who has done the fraud has escaped, that is one possibility of fraud. And secondly, disgruntled staff. If somebody is fired, scolded, and seeks revenge out of anger. The fraud angle is something which a lot of fans of mine also say that There is a TV serial called Murder She Wrote where the lady is senior in age, solves murders, and they have used the same term for me: fraud is all he sees. It's quite possible, but if you notice that if there is a fraud, there should be a beneficiary. If the beneficiaries are in thousands and if they cannot be isolated to and linked to a person, then the fraud gets either buried or discovered very late. In the next slide, let us look at the possibility of the hypothesis which we have just discussed. There is no batch control. If we mention, then there is no batch control issues which have caused this, and therefore this not going to be a probability of the reason of the double payment. There was no routine maintenance which is mentioned in the publicity department of the bank or the software company. And since it is a 24-hour banking system which is there, calendar setting is not likely to be an issue. Process running twice, if it is activated manually, it is possible to be an error. And intentional, of course, that is possible. And since I am always finding out or looking at it from a fraud angle, I am making this possible. This is most likely is what I feel. And let us look at how the developments of the study and the investigation of the Santander Bank comes out. Normally they don't come out and then this event is buried, but if it does come out, please continue to look at this channel and then look at whether my analysis and hypothesis is correct or it is a disgruntled staff. So these two are high probability is what I'm saying. Competition disruption possible, because the other bank would like to confuse the publicity and the public about this bank and therefore consider it unreliable, and before hiring the person from this bank, they may have asked the person to assist them into this kind of an operation, and therefore I feel this could be a possibility. Friends, this is an exercise in the process of thinking which I have shared with you. The idea is not to isolate only for this case, but also for all other cases which you will come across in work as well as in life. If you have not subscribed, kindly subscribe and then let me know in your comments what you feel is the hypothesis and whether you agree with me or you have some additional hypothesis with you. Thanks a lot.